Welcome back to a new episode of the Patronus Pages. Today we are doing another summary and review video. We're going to continue this series with the rest of the books since you guys enjoyed our first one so much. So now let's dive into the Chamber of Secrets. The story starts off at the Dursleys on Privet Drive. Another breakfast argument erupted when Mr. Dursley complained about Harry's owl, Hedwig, disturbing his sleep for the third time that week. Harry argued Hedwig was bored and needed to fly at night, but Uncle Vernon dismissed his concerns, wary of the owl attracting attention. Amidst the familial chaos, with Aunt Petunia doting on Dudley and Vernon discussing his potential business deal, Harry's 12th birthday went unnoticed. Feeling isolated, Harry longed for Hogwarts and his friends, Ron and Hermione, who hadn't written all summer. His magical belongings were locked away, and even mentioning magic was forbidden, as demonstrated when his innocent comment caused panic, leading to Harry being assigned chores as punishment. Throughout the day, Harry worked under the sun, feeling more disconnected from his magical life and doubting his friendships. By evening, exhausted and covered in sweat, he was barely allowed to eat before being sent upstairs as the Dursleys prepared for a significant dinner party with the hope of securing a lucrative business deal. Upstairs, anticipating a lonely evening, Harry discovered an unexpected guest sitting on his bed. When Harry encounters Dobby, a house elf with large bat-like ears and bulging green eyes, in his room, he is initially shocked. Dobby, wearing an old pillowcase, has come to warn Harry not to return to Hogwarts due to a dangerous plot that could put him in grave danger. Despite Harry's insistence on going back, Dobby reveals he has been intercepting letters from Harry's friends to make him feel isolated and thus dissuade him from returning to school. Harry's attempt to retrieve his letters results in Dobby wreaking havoc in the Dursleys' home, starting with a ruined pudding incident during an important dinner with Uncle Vernon's potential clients, leading to a disastrous visit from an owl delivering a warning from the Ministry of Magic about underage magic use. This results in Harry being confined to his room with bars on the windows and a cat flap for food delivery. In his isolation, Harry contemplates the bleakness of his situation, comparing his life to being an exhibit in a zoo. Just when despair seems overwhelming, he's awakened by the sight of his friend Ron Weasley outside his window, offering hope and a potential escape from the Dursleys' imprisonment. Harry's escape from the Dursleys begins with a surprise rescue by Ron, Fred and George Weasley, who arrive in a magically enhanced car. Despite initial worries about breaking rules and facing consequences, they manage to free Harry and his belongings, including his owl Hedwig. The group then flies to the Weasleys' home, the Burrow, where Harry is introduced to a lively and warm family dynamic vastly different from the Dursleys. Upon arrival, they are met by Mrs. Weasley's scolding for the boy's reckless behaviour, but also her genuine concern for Harry's well-being. Harry is fascinated by the quirky, loving atmosphere of the Burrow and the magic that seems to be a natural part of the Weasleys' lives, from self-cleaning dishes to a clock that indicates the family's whereabouts rather than the time. As Harry settles in, he learns more about the Weasleys, including Ron's father's work at the Ministry of Magic and the family's fondness for the Quidditch team, the Chudley Cannons. Despite the chaos and the crowding, Harry feels a sense of belonging and happiness he's never experienced before, declaring the Burrow the best place he's ever been. Life at the Burrow, with its chaotic warmth and magical eccentricities, was a stark contrast to the cold, mundane existence Harry endured with the Dursleys. From a mirror that scolded him about his appearance to a ghoul that became noisy during quiet times, the Burrow was a haven of the unexpected and the comforting. However, it wasn't the animated household objects or even the bursts of magic from Fred and George's room that struck Harry the most. It was the genuine affection he received from everyone. As Mr. Weasley expressed his fascination with Muggle inventions, saying, "Fascinating, ingenious, really, how many ways Muggles have found of getting along without magic." Harry found himself appreciating the magical world's wonders all the more while sitting at the Weasleys' dinner table. The anticipation of returning to Hogwarts was punctuated by a visit to Diagon Alley for school supplies, where Harry encountered Gilderoy Lockhart, the new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. Lockhart, with his dazzling smile and forget-me-not blue robes, was the embodiment of celebrity within the wizarding world. His announcement of taking the Hogwarts position, made with Harry by his side, was a spectacle that blended admiration with a touch of the absurd. Lockhart's lavish attention, including gifting Harry a complete set of his works, was both flattering and overwhelming for Harry, who was unused to such fanfare. The encounter with Lockhart in Flourish and Blots brought a surreal edge to the day, especially as it devolved into a confrontation between Lucius Malfoy and Arthur Weasley. The altercation underscored the class tensions and prejudices within the wizarding community, with Malfoy disparaging the Weasleys' financial struggles. Amidst this, Lockhart's presence, initially a source of light-hearted excitement, became an incongruous backdrop to the raw display of animosity and the protective fierceness of family bonds. In the midst of these experiences, Harry was reminded of the complexities of the world he had entered, where fame, pride and prejudice could intermingle so unpredictably. The warmth of the Burrow stood in stark contrast not only to the Dursleys' home, but also to the darker undercurrents Harry faced in the wider wizarding world. Yet, through it all, the sense of belonging and care he found with the Weasleys provided a steadfast anchor, making every new encounter a part of his ongoing journey in magic. The chaotic close to their summer and the beginning of the new term at Hogwarts were underscored by Harry and Ron's necessity to take the flying Ford Anglia to school. After finding themselves unable to pass through the barrier to platform 9 3/4 at King's Cross Station, a situation that left them stranded and desperate not to miss the Hogwarts Express, and, by extension, the start of the school year, they saw no other option but to resort to flying Mr. Weasley's enchanted car. This decision, born out of a lack of alternatives and a pressing need to get back to Hogwarts, spiraled into an unprecedented arrival that crashed not only into the Whomping Willow, but also into the forefront of school gossip and disciplinary scrutiny. Their unorthodox choice to fly the car was not made lightly. It stemmed from an urgent need to adhere to their responsibilities as Hogwarts students, despite the unforeseen barrier that thwarted their initial plans. The repercussion of this decision was a vivid reminder of the consequences that come with bending the rules, even in the face of necessity. The aftermath in Snape's office, where the potential for severe punishment loomed large, and the subsequent reaction from their peers, who oscillated between awe and admonishment, showcased the complex dynamics at play within the wizarding school's walls. These events set a tone for their second year, one where boundaries would be tested and the definitions of right and wrong would blur in the face of greater challenges. The day following their tumultuous return to Hogwarts began on a downward spiral for Harry, contrasting sharply with the previous evening's excitement. Breakfast in the Great Hall under the dull, enchanted ceiling was a quiet affair for him, marked by Hermione's disapproving silence and a sense of guilt overshadowing the start of the new term. This mood lingered as the day progressed, notably during Gilderoy Lockhart's Defense Against the Dark Arts class, where the divide between the trio's perception of Lockhart widened. Lockhart's lesson, intended to introduce the students to the dangers of magical creatures, instead descended into chaos with the release of Cornish pixies. His inability to manage the situation, let alone the pixies, laid bare his incompetence to Harry and Ron, despite Hermione's continued admiration for the celebrity wizard's supposed accomplishments. The classroom debacle, which saw students ducking for cover and Neville Longbottom hoisted into the air by pixies, ended with Lockhart's hasty retreat, leaving the mess for the students to handle. This incident not only served as a moment of comic relief, but also highlighted the contrasting reactions to Lockhart's flamboyance and self-proclaimed expertise. Hermione's defense of Lockhart, based on his written accounts against Harry and Ron's skepticism, underscored the theme of celebrity and its influence. It also foreshadowed the challenges and lessons that lay ahead for the trio as they navigated their second year at Hogwarts amidst growing dangers and the dubious guidance of their new Defense Against the Dark Arts professor. In the days following their unconventional entrance to Hogwarts, Harry found himself adopting tactics of evasion, particularly with Gilderoy Lockhart, whose presence in the corridors became an unwelcome certainty. Complicating Harry's attempts to maintain a low profile was Colin Creevey, whose enthusiasm for Harry bordered on the zealous. Colin, it seemed, had dedicated himself to learning Harry's schedule, greeting him with a persistent cheerfulness that Harry found increasingly taxing, despite Colin's harmless intentions. Each interaction, though brief, left Harry grappling with the complexities of his unwanted fame. Meanwhile, Ron's wand continued to malfunction with spectacular failure, notably during a charms class when it propelled itself towards Professor Flitwick, resulting in an unfortunate and somewhat comical injury. Such incidents, coupled with Hedwig's lingering resentment over the car journey, contributed to Harry's relief at the arrival of the weekend. Plans to visit Hagrid offered a respite until an early morning wake-up call from Oliver Wood thrust Harry into the chilly dawn for Quidditch practice, a reminder of the relentless pace of Hogwarts life. The Quidditch pitch, usually a place of camaraderie and teamwork, became the setting for an unexpected confrontation with Draco Malfoy and the Slytherin Quidditch team, who flaunted their new Nimbus 2001 brooms, a clear advantage facilitated by Malfoy's wealth. The encounter, already charged with rivalry, took a dark turn as Malfoy uttered a deeply offensive term towards Hermione. The ensuing chaos, punctuated by Ron's ill-fated attempt to defend Hermione's honour, underscored the deep-seated prejudices that lurked within the wizarding world. The term mudblood, heavy with connotations of bigotry and discrimination, emerged as a stark reminder of the divisions that ran deeper than house rivalries. In the aftermath, as Ron struggled with the physical manifestation of his botched spell, Harry, Hermione, and an unwitting Colin Creevey sought refuge in Hagrid's welcoming, if unconventional, home. Hagrid's dismissal of Lockhart's advice and the revelation of Malfoy's insult opened a window into the complexities and challenges that lay ahead for Harry and his friends. The solidarity among them, tested by the events of the day, proved resilient, a beacon of hope in the face of adversity. This sequence of events, marked by moments of levity and profound seriousness, painted a vivid picture of life at Hogwarts, a life filled with the joys of friendship, the thrill of Quidditch, and the shadow of deeper, darker currents that threatened to divide and define them. October unfurled its chilly embrace across the Hogwarts grounds, weaving dampness and a brisk chill through both the sprawling lawns and the ancient stones of the castle itself. In this shivery embrace, Madame Pomfrey found herself unusually busy, tending to a sudden outbreak of colds with her pepper-up potion, which, while effective, left its consumers wreathed in steam from their ears, much to the amusement and mild inconvenience of others. Ginny Weasley, notably pale, was coaxed into taking the potion by Percy, resulting in a comedic, fiery illusion around her head that drew concerned glances and suppressed chuckles alike. The relentless rain battered the castle windows as if determined to breach the stone fortress, transforming the grounds into a damp, sodden world where even the most resilient of flowers succumbed to the deluge, becoming part of the muddy morass. Hagrid's pumpkins, however, thrived absurdly under these conditions, swelling to the size of small huts, much to his delight and the bemusement of onlookers. In such weather, one might have expected the spirits of the Gryffindor Quidditch team to be as dampened as the grounds. Yet Oliver Wood's fervour for training sessions seemed impervious to the elements, prompting Harry to trudge back to Gryffindor Tower, soaked and mud-splattered after a particularly grueling practice. The dreary conditions mirrored Harry's mood, not helped by reports of the Slytherin team's alarming speed, courtesy of their new Nimbus 2001s. Amidst this gloom, Harry stumbled upon nearly headless Nick, the Gryffindor ghost, who seemed engulfed in his own troubles. The spectral figure was muttering about some unmet requirements, a conversation that intrigued Harry enough to engage. The ghost lamented his rejection from the headless hunt, a matter of mere inches preventing his full participation, which led to an amusing yet poignant exchange between them. Elsewhere, the castle teemed with the usual mischief and mayhem, with Peeves the poltergeist causing uproar and the imposing figure of Filch hunting down rule breakers, his mood as foul as the weather. Amid these encounters, Harry stumbled upon a curious letter indicating Filch's interest in a quick-spell course, suggesting hidden depths to the caretaker's character and sparking questions about his past. As Halloween approached, the atmosphere within Hogwarts shifted, anticipation for the annual feast growing. Yet Harry found himself committed to attending Nearly Headless Nick's Death Day party, a decision that led him and his friends into the colder, more sombre depths of the castle. The party, with its ghostly attendees and morbid decorations, offered a stark contrast to the warm festivity of the Halloween feast above. Yet it was not without its own intrigue and moments of spectral camaraderie. However, the evening took a darker turn with the discovery of a chilling message on the wall and the petrified form of Mrs. Norris. The words, "The Chamber of Secrets has been opened," thrust Harry, Ron and Hermione into the heart of a mystery that echoed with the fears and legends of Hogwarts's past. The incident, with its sinister implications and the spectre of ancient threats reawakened, marked a turning point in the year, drawing the trio deeper into the hidden layers of the magical world they thought they knew. In the midst of the eerie atmosphere following the petrification of Mrs. Norris, Harry, Ron and Hermione find themselves grappling with the sinister mystery of the Chamber of Secrets. United by a shared resolve to uncover the truth behind the attacks and the identity of the heir of Slytherin, they concoct a daring plan, spurred by a mix of courage and desperation. Their strategy hinges on the use of Polyjuice potion, a complex brew that allows the drinker to assume the form of someone else. Hermione, ever the voice of reason, now takes the lead with a boldness that surprises her friends. She proposes that they transform themselves into members of Slytherin House to extract information directly from Draco Malfoy, whom they suspect knows more about the chamber's opening. "All we'd need would be some Polyjuice potion," Hermione asserts, outlining a plan that veers into the forbidden, illustrating the severity of their plight. The potion's recipe, however, lies within the confines of the restricted section of the Hogwarts library, accessible only with a teacher's permission. The trio is aware of the difficulty of acquiring such permission under false pretenses, acknowledging the need for a convincing cover story. "Hard to see why we'd want the book, really," Ron muses, highlighting the challenge ahead, "if we weren't going to try and make one of the potions." Hermione, quick to strategize, suggests they express an interest in the potion's theory rather than its practical application, hoping to appeal to their professor's academic sensibilities. As they plan to navigate the treacherous path to obtaining the potion's recipe, their conversation reflects the gravity of their mission. They are driven by a cause greater than the fear of potential expulsion or the moral quandaries of deception. The chapter captures the essence of their journey from ordinary students to determined seekers of truth, bound together by the urgent need to protect their peers and unravel the darkness that threatens Hogwarts. In crafting their plan, the trio embodies the courage and ingenuity that define their friendship. Their willingness to venture into the unknown, armed with little more than their wits and their unwavering loyalty to each other, sets the stage for the challenges and revelations that lie ahead. After the disastrous incident with the Cornish pixies, Professor Lockhart ceased bringing live creatures to his Defense Against the Dark Arts classes. Instead, he resorted to reading aloud from his books and reenacting his supposed heroic exploits, often roping Harry into unflattering roles like a Transylvanian villager or a vampire who could only eat lettuce. In their next lesson, Lockhart forced Harry to act as a werewolf, much to Harry's annoyance. Despite his reluctance, Harry complied, knowing he needed to keep Lockhart in good spirits for their own plans. Following the class, Harry, Ron and Hermione waited until everyone had left before approaching Lockhart. Hermione nervously presented him with a note requesting permission to access a book in the restricted section of the library, claiming it would help her understand concepts in his book Gadding with Ghouls. Flattered by her praise, Lockhart signed the note without hesitation, not even glancing at the book title. As they left, Lockhart boasted to Harry about his own Quidditch prowess and offered unsolicited advice, which Harry dismissed as he hurried away. At the library, Madame Pince scrutinized the note, but eventually handed over most potente potions. The trio retreated to Moaning Myrtle's out-of-order bathroom to examine it. They found the recipe for the Polyjuice potion, which would allow them to transform into someone else. The potion was complex and required rare ingredients, including items that would have to be stolen from Snape's private stores. Ron was horrified at the thought of using pieces of Crabbe and Goyle for the transformation, but Hermione was resolute, estimating it would take a month to brew. The next morning, the tension was palpable as Gryffindor prepared to face Slytherin in Quidditch. The Slytherin team had superior brooms, but Gryffindor was determined to win. During the match, Harry noticed that one of the bludgers was behaving erratically, targeting him exclusively. Fred and George tried to protect him, but the rogue bludger was relentless. During a timeout, Harry insisted on facing it alone so he could focus on finding the snitch. As play resumed under pouring rain, Harry executed daring maneuvers to evade the bludger. Malfoy taunted him relentlessly, but in a critical moment, Harry spotted the golden snitch near Malfoy's ear. Ignoring the bludger hurtling toward him, he dived for it. The bludger struck his arm, breaking it, but Harry managed to catch the snitch before crashing to the ground. Despite his injury, Gryffindor won the match. Lockhart rushed over, insisting he could heal Harry's arm. Despite protests, he performed a spell that removed all the bones from Harry's arm instead of mending it, leaving it limp and boneless. Furious, Madame Pomfrey admitted Harry to the hospital wing, giving him Scaligro to regrow his bones, a painful overnight process. Late that night, Harry awoke to find Dobby, the house elf, at his bedside. Dobby confessed that he had blocked the barrier at King's Cross and bewitched the bludger, hoping to injure Harry enough to send him home. He warned that the Chamber of Secrets had been opened again and that Harry was in grave danger. Before Harry could extract more information, footsteps approached and Dobby vanished. Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall entered, carrying a petrified Colin Creevey. They discussed the alarming situation. Colin had been found stiff, holding his camera, which had melted from the inside. Dumbledore confirmed that the Chamber of Secrets was indeed open again, leaving the pressing question of how it had happened. Pretending to be asleep, Harry listened, realizing that dark forces were at work within Hogwarts and that he and his friends needed to act swiftly to uncover the truth. After regaining full use of his arm in the hospital wing, Harry eagerly seeks out Ron and Hermione to share his encounter with Dobby and the news about Colin Creevey's attack. He discovers them in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom, already brewing the Polyjuice potion. They discuss Dobby's warnings and realize the Chamber of Secrets has been opened before, heightening their urgency to question Malfoy about his potential involvement. As rumors of Colin's attack spread, fear grips the school. Students begin carrying protective talismans, and Muggleborns like Neville Longbottom feel particularly vulnerable. Fred and George's attempts to cheer up their sister Ginny only distress her further. Determined to accelerate their plan, Hermione insists they need to steal ingredients from Snape's private stores. During a potions lesson, they create a diversion by causing Goyle's potion to explode, allowing Hermione to sneak into Snape's office and retrieve the necessary items. Snape suspects Harry but lacks proof. A notice for a new Dueling Club captures the trio's interest, and they attend the first meeting that evening. To their dismay, Lockhart is leading it, with Snape as his assistant. After a humiliating demonstration where Snape easily disarms Lockhart, students pair off to practice dueling. Harry is matched with Malfoy. During their duel, Malfoy conjures a snake. When the serpent threatens Justin Finch-Fletchley, Harry instinctively speaks Parseltongue to calm it. The crowd reacts with fear and suspicion, as speaking to snakes is associated with Salazar Slytherin. Confused by everyone's reaction, Harry learns from Ron and Hermione that being a Parselmouth is rare and linked to dark magic. The school begins to suspect Harry might be the heir of Slytherin. Disturbed by this revelation, he tries to find Justin to explain, but instead overhears Hufflepuffs discussing their fears about him. Hurt and angry, he leaves, only to stumble upon Justin and nearly headless Nick, both petrified in a deserted corridor. Peeves the poltergeist raises the alarm, causing chaos as students and teachers gather. Ernie Macmillan openly accuses Harry of attacking Justin. Professor McGonagall arrives and, ignoring Harry's protests of innocence, escorts him to Dumbledore's office. As they ascend the spiral staircase to the headmaster's chamber, Harry is filled with dread, realizing he is now under serious suspicion for the mysterious attacks plaguing Hogwarts. Harry, feeling a mix of anxiety and curiosity, steps into Dumbledore's circular office, his mind spinning with fear that he might be expelled. The room is filled with strange, whirring silver instruments and portraits of sleeping former headmasters and headmistresses. His eyes land on the sorting hat, and unable to resist, he tries it on again, questioning whether it placed him in the right house. The hat cryptically suggests that Harry could have done well in Slytherin, which causes Harry's stomach to churn in discomfort. Before Harry can dwell on this revelation, his attention shifts to Dumbledore's decrepit-looking bird, Fawkes. To Harry's horror, the bird suddenly bursts into flames, leaving only a pile of ash behind. Dumbledore enters, explaining with a smile that Fawkes is a phoenix, which is reborn from its ashes on Burning Day. A tiny, wrinkled baby phoenix emerges from the ashes, much to Harry's amazement. Their conversation is interrupted by Hagrid's frantic entrance, clutching a dead rooster, urgently proclaiming Harry's innocence. Dumbledore reassures Hagrid and sends him out, then gently asks Harry if there's anything he wants to share. Harry, overwhelmed with the secret of the Polyjuice potion brewing in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom and haunted by the eerie voice he has heard, denies knowing anything. As the school descends into panic following the double attack on Justin and nearly headless Nick, the atmosphere becomes tense. Fred and George try to lighten Harry's mood by pretending he's the heir of Slytherin, while Hermione announces that the Polyjuice potion is nearly ready. With the potion's completion coinciding with Christmas, the trio prepares to carry out their plan to interrogate Draco Malfoy by transforming into his friends Crabbe and Goyle. The transformation is a grotesque experience for Harry and Ron as their bodies stretch and contort painfully. Once they change, they sneak into the Slytherin common room, where Malfoy unknowingly reveals his frustrations about not knowing the true heir of Slytherin. He also makes chilling remarks about his hope that Muggle-borns like Hermione will meet a grim fate. Just as the potion's effects begin to wear off, Harry and Ron make a hasty escape, returning to the bathroom to find a distraught Hermione. Her attempt to transform into Millicent Bulstrode has gone horribly wrong, and instead of a human, Hermione has taken on the appearance of a cat, leaving her deeply embarrassed and requiring a trip to the hospital wing. Hermione remained in the hospital wing for several weeks following the Polyjuice potion mishap, and rumours quickly spread that she had been attacked. So many curious students attempted to catch a glimpse of her that Madame Pomfrey had to place curtains around Hermione's bed. Although her face gradually returned to normal, Hermione was still dedicated to keeping up with her schoolwork, much to Ron's disbelief. The trio continued to investigate the mystery of the Chamber of Secrets, though their trail had gone cold after discovering that Malfoy wasn't the heir of Slytherin. One evening, Harry and Ron stumbled upon a flood of water seeping from Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. Inside, Myrtle, wailing louder than ever, revealed that someone had thrown a book at her. Harry and Ron discovered a small, waterlogged diary with the name T.M. Riddle inscribed on the cover. While Ron warned Harry that magical books could be dangerous, Harry decided to keep the diary, intrigued by its connection to the school's past. After Hermione returned from the hospital wing, she theorized that Riddle's diary might contain hidden secrets about the Chamber of Secrets. Though initial attempts to reveal any invisible writing were unsuccessful, Harry felt a strange connection to the diary, as if it held more than met the eye. In the following days, Harry found himself drawn to the blank pages, flipping through them despite their emptiness. One night, Harry wrote his name in the diary, and to his astonishment, the ink vanished and words appeared in reply. He had unknowingly started a conversation with Tom Riddle, a former Hogwarts student. Riddle explained that 50 years ago the Chamber of Secrets had been opened and a student had died. He claimed to have caught the person responsible, though the truth had been covered up by the school. When Harry asked who was behind the attacks, Riddle offered to show him the memory of the night he caught the culprit. In a whirl of colour, Harry was pulled into Riddle's memory, finding himself inside Hogwarts as it was 50 years earlier. He witnessed a young Tom Riddle speaking with the then headmaster, Professor Dippet, pleading to stay at school during the summer instead of returning to a Muggle orphanage. Riddle's demeanour shifted when the conversation turned to the recent attacks on students, revealing his calculated nature. As the memory progressed, Harry followed Riddle to the dungeons where they encountered a much younger Hagrid. Riddle accused Hagrid of harbouring a dangerous creature that had caused the attacks. In a dramatic confrontation, a giant hairy creature with multiple legs escaped, confirming Riddle's suspicions. The memory ended abruptly, as Harry was pulled back into the present, breathless and shaken. Stunned, Harry shared his revelation with Ron. Hagrid had been blamed for opening the Chamber of Secrets 50 years ago. Harry, Ron and Hermione knew Hagrid had a soft spot for dangerous creatures, recalling how he tried to raise a dragon and kept a giant three-headed dog named Fluffy during their first year. Imagining a younger Hagrid discovering a monster hidden in the castle seemed plausible. Perhaps he'd even tried to tame it. However, Harry was certain Hagrid would never intentionally hurt anyone. Despite uncovering the truth from Tom Riddle's diary, the trio remained conflicted. Hermione suggested that perhaps Riddle had been wrong, while Ron grumbled about Riddle's eagerness to turn Hagrid in. The thought of confronting Hagrid about the Chamber of Secrets weighed heavily on their minds, but they agreed to hold off unless another attack occurred. The weeks passed quietly, and the atmosphere at Hogwarts lightened. Peeves grew tired of his mocking song, and even Ernie Macmillan of Hufflepuff, who had once accused Harry of being the heir of Slytherin, began acting politely. The mandrakes in Greenhouse 3, essential for curing the petrified students, had matured to the point of hosting raucous parties, lifting Professor Sprout's spirits. For a while, it seemed the threat of the Chamber of Secrets had subsided. Easter brought new worries for the second-year students, as they had to select subjects for their third year. Hermione took the task seriously, while Harry and Ron chose more casually. Meanwhile, Neville received conflicting advice from his family, and Dean, having grown up with Muggles, made his choices by randomly jabbing his wand at the subject list. Percy Weasley, ever the career advisor, offered guidance to Harry, who wasn't too interested beyond Quidditch. As Gryffindor prepared for their upcoming Quidditch match against Hufflepuff, Harry felt optimistic, until he returned to his dormitory to find his belongings thrown everywhere. His trunk had been ransacked, and Riddle's diary was missing. The only plausible explanation was that a Gryffindor had stolen it, since no one else could access their tower. Hermione suggested reporting the theft, but Harry hesitated, not wanting to explain the diary's connection to Hagrid. The next morning, as Harry and his friends headed to the Quidditch pitch, he heard the ominous voice again, muttering about killing. Just as Harry prepared for the match, Professor McGonagall arrived with terrible news. The match was cancelled, and there had been another attack. Harry, along with Ron, followed McGonagall to the hospital wing, where they found Hermione petrified alongside a Ravenclaw girl. Shocked, the boys stared at Hermione's lifeless form as McGonagall revealed that they had been found near the library with a small mirror beside them. Back in Gryffindor Tower, Professor McGonagall announced stricter security measures, leaving the students confined to their common rooms after 6 o'clock and accompanied by teachers at all times. As rumours spread, Lee Jordan suggested that the Slytherins were responsible for the attacks, but Harry could think only of Hermione's fate. Determined to uncover the truth, he resolved to visit Hagrid, convinced that the key to the mystery lay with him. That night, Harry and Ron donned Harry's invisibility cloak and snuck out of the castle, narrowly avoiding detection by patrolling teachers and ghosts. They arrived at Hagrid's cabin to find him nervously clutching a crossbow. Before they could speak, a loud knock on the door startled them, forcing them to hide under the cloak as Hagrid answered it. To their shock, Dumbledore and Cornelius Fudge, the Minister of Magic, entered. Fudge, looking uncomfortable, announced that Hagrid would be taken to Azkaban as a precaution due to his past record. Despite Dumbledore's protests and his firm belief in Hagrid's innocence, Fudge insisted that he had to be seen doing something to stop the attacks. As if things couldn't get worse, Lucius Malfoy arrived, bearing an order of suspension for Dumbledore, signed by all 12 school governors. Despite protests from Fudge, Dumbledore gracefully accepted his removal, but not before leaving a cryptic warning: "Help will always be given at Hogwarts to those who ask for it." Hagrid too left with a final clue for Harry and Ron, advising them to follow the spiders before being escorted away. Once the hut was empty, Ron and Harry pulled off the cloak, feeling the full weight of what had just transpired. With Dumbledore and Hagrid gone, the future of Hogwarts seemed grim. As Fang howled at the closed door, the boys knew they had to act quickly, or the worst was yet to come. Harry and Ron's harrowing encounter in the Forbidden Forest left them with more questions than answers. They had risked their lives, following Hagrid's cryptic advice to follow the spiders, only to discover a chilling truth. While Hagrid had been wrongly accused of unleashing the monster from the Chamber of Secrets, the real danger still lurked within the walls of Hogwarts. Aragog, the massive and ancient acromantula, had made it clear that although he and his offspring had never harmed humans, the creature in the chamber was something far more sinister, something that terrified even the spiders. As Aragog recounted the events of 50 years ago, Harry and Ron had been gripped with fear. The realization that a creature existed so deadly and mysterious that even Aragog dared not speak its name sent shivers down their spines. Harry had pressed for more information, hoping Aragog could give them some clue about what kind of monster they were facing. But Aragog refused to say anything more about the creature that lived in the chamber, saying only that he had never laid eyes on it, but had sensed its presence as a student died. For Harry, this revelation was both relieving and troubling. It cleared Hagrid of the suspicion that had followed him for decades, proving once and for all that he hadn't opened the Chamber of Secrets or set a monster loose. Yet it left Harry and Ron no closer to discovering the identity of the true heir of Slytherin or the nature of the beast responsible for petrifying students. The fact that even Aragog feared the creature hinted at its unimaginable power. But what exactly was it? How did it attack? And why had no one seen it? As they made their way back to Hogwarts, their thoughts were heavy. The journey through the Forbidden Forest had been nothing short of terrifying. The enchanted car's sudden miraculous arrival had saved them from certain death. The memory of the massive, hairy spiders encircling them, pincers clicking in excitement at the prospect of fresh prey, was still fresh in their minds. The thought of what might have happened had the car not appeared when it did made Ron visibly tremble as he walked through the moonlit grounds, still pale and shaken. Fang, Hagrid's boarhound, had been just as frightened, and they had barely made it back without being overwhelmed by fear. Ron's anger toward Hagrid was palpable. As they neared the edge of the forest, he cursed Hagrid's trust in creatures that were clearly dangerous. "Follow the spiders," Ron muttered in disbelief, his voice trembling as he wiped his mouth after being violently sick outside Hagrid's hut. "We're lucky to be alive." His fear quickly turned to frustration. What was the point of that? All we learned is that Hagrid didn't open the chamber. Great, that clears him, but it doesn't help us figure out what the real monster is. Harry, though equally shaken, had a different perspective. Hagrid might have been reckless keeping Aragog, but at least we know the truth now, he said, trying to reason with Ron. He's been innocent all along. Yet, despite this truth, they still had no real leads on the true culprit behind the attacks. The visit had only reinforced the mystery surrounding the Chamber of Secrets, and it seemed like they were no closer to solving it than when they had started. Returning to the castle under the safety of the invisibility cloak, Harry and Ron moved carefully through the corridors, avoiding patrolling teachers and prefects. The castle seemed eerily quiet, the darkened hallways filled with an oppressive silence that only heightened their unease. Hogwarts, normally a place of warmth and safety, had taken on a foreboding atmosphere since Dumbledore's suspension and Hagrid's arrest. With the absence of the headmaster, the school felt vulnerable, and the constant fear of another attack weighed heavily on every student. When they finally reached the Gryffindor common room, they found it deserted, the fire having burned down to glowing embers. They climbed the stairs to their dormitory in silence, each lost in thought. Ron collapsed onto his bed without even bothering to change out of his clothes, still visibly shaken from their ordeal. Harry, however, sat on the edge of his four-poster bed, his mind racing. He replayed everything Aragog had said in his head. The spider had been adamant that Hagrid was innocent, that he had never been the creature terrorizing the school. But Aragog had also mentioned something crucial, something Harry couldn't stop thinking about. The girl who died had been found in a bathroom. That detail, which had seemed insignificant at first, now stood out in Harry's mind. As he lay back on his bed, staring at the ceiling, the thought kept nagging at him. The girl who had died. What if she had never left the bathroom? What if she was still there, in some form? Harry sat up suddenly, the pieces falling into place. "Ron," he hissed, trying to wake his friend. Ron stirred, groaning, still half asleep. "What's wrong now?" he mumbled, rubbing his eyes. "The girl who died. Aragog said she was found in a bathroom," Harry whispered, glancing at the other boys in the dormitory to make sure they were asleep. "What if she never left the bathroom? What if she's still there?" Ron blinked, still groggy from sleep. "What are you on about?" he muttered, confused. But as Harry's words sank in, Ron's expression changed. "Wait, you don't mean not Moaning Myrtle?" Harry nodded, his mind racing. It all made sense now. Moaning Myrtle had died in a bathroom, and she had been haunting it ever since. Could she have been the girl Aragog mentioned? Could Myrtle have witnessed something about the Chamber of Secrets that no one else knew? Suddenly, Harry felt a surge of hope. Maybe they weren't as stuck as they thought. If Myrtle had been the girl killed by the monster all those years ago, she might know more about what happened than anyone else. And if they could talk to her, they might finally get the answers they had been searching for. It was a long shot, but it was the only lead they had. The thought of talking to Myrtle didn't exactly fill Harry with excitement. She was notoriously moody and difficult to deal with, but it was worth a try. "Tomorrow," Harry said firmly, as Ron stared at him, still processing the idea. "We go talk to Myrtle. She might be the key to this whole thing." Ron nodded, still looking pale and uneasy, but there was a glimmer of hope in his eyes as well. For the first time in days, they had a real plan, a plan that might lead them to the truth about the Chamber of Secrets. As Harry lay back down, feeling more determined than ever, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the verge of uncovering something huge. Moaning Myrtle had been there when it all started. Now it was time to find out what she knew. Harry, Ron and Hermione are initially frustrated, realizing they could have asked Moaning Myrtle about her death during their many visits to her bathroom. However, this setback is overshadowed when Professor McGonagall announces the upcoming exams, much to the students' shock. Despite the turmoil at Hogwarts, the school's routine must go on, and the exams are set to begin in a week. Tension builds, but hope surfaces when McGonagall informs everyone that the mandrakes are ready to revive the petrified victims. This news excites Ron, who believes Hermione will have answers once revived. At breakfast, Ginny Weasley appears unusually anxious, clearly struggling with something. Just as she's about to confide in Harry and Ron, Percy Weasley interrupts, unknowingly causing her to flee. Percy awkwardly explains that Ginny caught him in a private moment, but Harry and Ron sense that Ginny's worries run deeper, especially given her erratic behavior. Later, Harry and Ron seize the opportunity to ditch Gilderoy Lockhart during a class and sneak off to Moaning Myrtle's bathroom, hoping to learn more. However, they are intercepted by Professor McGonagall, who, to their surprise, grants them permission to visit Hermione in the hospital wing. They find her still petrified, but Harry notices a piece of paper clutched in her hand. After a tense struggle to retrieve it, they uncover a page from a library book describing the basilisk, a deadly serpent that kills with its stare. Hermione has also scribbled the word pipes, leading Harry to realize that the monster has been traveling through Hogwarts' plumbing. The pieces begin to fall into place. Students like Colin Creevey and Justin Finch-Fletchley only saw the basilisk indirectly, which is why they were petrified rather than killed. Mrs. Norris likely saw its reflection in water from Moaning Myrtle's bathroom, and the basilisk's aversion to roosters explains why Hagrid's chickens were slaughtered. Their excitement is abruptly interrupted by a school-wide announcement from Professor McGonagall. A student has been taken into the Chamber of Secrets, and the message left behind claims that her skeleton will lie in the chamber forever. The victim is none other than Ginny Weasley. Devastated, Ron and Harry fear the worst, convinced that Ginny must have uncovered something about the chamber leading to her abduction. Determined to act, Harry and Ron confront Lockhart, who has been tasked with saving Ginny. However, they discover the truth. Lockhart is a fraud who plans to flee, confessing that he's taken credit for others' accomplishments by using powerful memory charms. Furious, Harry and Ron force him to join them in finding the chamber. Together, they head to Moaning Myrtle's bathroom, where Myrtle recounts her death, killed by a pair of giant yellow eyes. Harry soon discovers a snake engraved on a sink tap, and by speaking Parseltongue, he opens the entrance to the chamber. The sink sinks into the ground, revealing a large pipe. One by one, Harry, Ron, and a terrified Lockhart slide down into a dark, slimy tunnel far beneath the school. As they traverse the eerie tunnel, they stumble upon an enormous snakeskin, confirming their worst fears about the monster's size. In a desperate move, Lockhart tries to erase Harry and Ron's memories, but fails spectacularly when Ron's broken wand backfires. The explosion causes a rockfall, separating Harry from Ron. Knowing he's running out of time to save Ginny, Harry continues forward alone, creeping through the twisting tunnel until he reaches a door marked with 2 entwined serpents. With a whispered command in Parseltongue, Harry opens the door to the Chamber of Secrets, knowing that the final confrontation and Ginny's fate awaits within. Harry finds himself in the heart of the Chamber of Secrets, a vast and eerie hall where towering stone pillars entwined with carved serpents rise to a ceiling hidden in shadows. The greenish gloom envelops everything, and his footsteps echo ominously as he carefully moves between the pillars, keeping his eyes narrowed, ready to shut them against the sight of the basilisk. Every shadow seems threatening, and he's keenly aware that danger could be lurking anywhere. Then, as he reaches the end of the chamber, a massive stone statue looms before him, a carved figure of an ancient monkey-like man with a long beard. Beneath its feet lies a small figure in black robes, Ginny Weasley, motionless and pale. Harry races to her side, fear tightening his chest. He turns her over and desperately pleads for her to wake up, but she remains unresponsive, her face as cold as stone. Suddenly a soft voice interrupts him. Harry spins around to see a tall, black-haired boy leaning casually against one of the pillars, Tom Riddle. Riddle, oddly misty around the edges as though seen through fog, confirms that Ginny is still alive, but only just. Harry, confused and desperate, begs Riddle for help, explaining that the basilisk could attack at any moment. But Riddle remains still, watching Harry with a detached interest, twirling Harry's wand between his fingers. As Harry continues to urge Riddle to help, the boy's smile widens, and it becomes clear that Riddle has no intention of aiding him. Instead, he begins explaining the dark truth. Ginny has been writing to him through the diary for months, pouring out her fears and secrets, unwittingly feeding Riddle's strength. As Ginny grew weaker, Riddle grew stronger, until he had enough power to possess her, make her open the Chamber of Secrets, and control the deadly serpent. It was Ginny who had strangled the roosters and written the threatening messages on the walls under Riddle's influence. Riddle's revelation shocks Harry, but the more chilling truth is yet to come. Riddle reveals that he is not just a memory preserved in a diary, he is Lord Voldemort in his youth. With a wave of Harry's wand, Riddle arranges the letters of his name, Tom Marvolo Riddle, to spell out, "I am Lord Voldemort." Harry, filled with dread, realizes he is face to face with the boy who would grow up to become the Dark Lord. Riddle, however, remains fixated on Harry, obsessed with understanding how Harry, a mere baby, survived Voldemort's curse. As he taunts Harry, questioning how a child with no extraordinary magical talent could defeat the most powerful dark wizard in history, Harry retaliates, pointing out that Dumbledore is the greatest wizard of all time and that Voldemort never dared challenge him directly. Riddle's smug demeanor falters briefly at the mention of Dumbledore, but he quickly regains his composure, insisting that Dumbledore fled the castle because of his presence. Just as the tension between them reaches its peak, haunting music fills the chamber. Riddle and Harry turn to see Fawkes, Dumbledore's phoenix, soaring into the chamber, carrying the sorting hat. Fawkes drops the hat at Harry's feet and perches on his shoulder, giving Harry a glimmer of hope in this dire situation. Riddle, however, mocks the seemingly useless objects that Dumbledore has sent, laughing at the notion that a bird and an old hat could save Harry from the basilisk. But Harry knows time is running out for Ginny, and as Riddle hisses in parcel tongue to summon the basilisk, the gigantic serpent begins to uncoil from within the statue of Salazar Slytherin. Harry shuts his eyes tightly, knowing that one look from the monster would mean instant death. As the basilisk slithers toward him, Harry hears Riddle command the creature to kill. He begins to run blindly, but before the serpent can strike, Fawkes attacks, pecking viciously at the basilisk's eyes and blinding the creature. Though wounded, the basilisk is still a deadly threat. As Harry struggles to find a way to fight back, the sorting hat suddenly provides a miraculous answer. A gleaming silver sword emerges from its depths. Armed with this weapon, Harry dodges the serpent's deadly lunges, finally driving the sword through the roof of the basilisk's mouth. The creature collapses, but not before one of its long fangs pierces Harry's arm, injecting him with lethal venom. As the poison begins to spread through his body, Harry collapses, weak and dizzy. He knows he doesn't have much time left, but Fawkes comes to his aid once again, crying pearly tears onto Harry's wound. Phoenix tears, known for their healing powers, miraculously cure him. Harry feels the life returning to him, much to Riddle's horror. Seizing his chance, Harry grabs the basilisk fang and plunges it into Riddle's diary. Ink spills from the book as Riddle screams in agony, his form dissolving until he disappears completely. With the diary destroyed, Ginny begins to stir. Harry rushes to her side, comforting her as she tearfully explains how she had been manipulated by Riddle and feared she was responsible for everything. Despite her guilt, Harry reassures her that Riddle is gone and the nightmare is over. They make their way out of the chamber, helped by Fawkes, who carries them, and a confused Lockhart, whose memory has been erased by his own backfired spell, up the long pipe and back to Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. As they emerge, Harry realizes that the danger has passed, but the emotional toll of the adventure still weighs heavily on them all, particularly on Ginny. With Fawkes leading the way, they head toward Professor McGonagall's office, ready to tell the truth about what happened in the Chamber of Secrets. Harry, Ron, Ginny and the memory-challenged Lockhart stood at the doorway to Professor McGonagall's office, covered in muck and slime, and, in Harry's case, blood. A brief silence hung in the air before Mrs. Weasley let out a scream, rushing toward her daughter. Ginny, still shaken from her ordeal, was enveloped in her parents' arms, both of them overcome with emotion. Harry's gaze, however, was fixed elsewhere, on Professor Dumbledore, standing by the fire, beaming. Next to him, Professor McGonagall clutched her chest, taking deep, steadying breaths as Fawkes the Phoenix swooped past Harry's ear and landed on Dumbledore's shoulder. Mrs. Weasley, in tears, hugged both Harry and Ron tightly, expressing her gratitude for saving Ginny's life. "You saved her! How did you do it?" Professor McGonagall, still visibly shaken, echoed the question, eager for answers. With a sense of duty, Harry approached the desk and placed the sorting hat, the gleaming sword of Gryffindor, and the destroyed diary of Tom Riddle on it, before launching into an explanation of everything that had transpired. He described hearing the disembodied voice, Hermione's discovery of the basilisk in the pipes, following the spiders into the Forbidden Forest, and how he and Ron deduced that Moaning Myrtle was the basilisk's final victim. As Harry reached the part about entering the Chamber of Secrets, McGonagall interrupted, incredulous at how they managed to survive. With a hoarse voice, Harry continued, recounting Fawkes's timely arrival, the gift of the sword from the sorting hat, and the intense battle with the basilisk. However, when the story shifted to Ginny and the diary, Harry hesitated, fearing that mentioning her involvement might lead to her expulsion. Ginny, clinging to her mother, wept silently, overwhelmed with guilt. Harry looked instinctively at Dumbledore, who offered him a reassuring smile. Dumbledore addressed the room with his gentle, commanding voice, explaining that Lord Voldemort had been manipulating Ginny through the diary, despite being in hiding. This revelation stunned Mr. and Mrs. Weasley, especially when Dumbledore revealed that Tom Riddle, the brilliant student Dumbledore had once taught at Hogwarts, had transformed into the dark wizard they now knew as Voldemort. Ginny, still trembling, confessed that she had been writing in the diary all year, unaware of its dark magic. Mr. Weasley, deeply shaken, reprimanded her, but Dumbledore quickly intervened, assuring them that no punishment would be given. Ginny had been deceived, just as more experienced wizards had been before her. He urged them to take her to the hospital wing for rest and recovery. With the Weasleys gone, Dumbledore turned his attention to Harry and Ron. They braced themselves for a reprimand, remembering how they had broken countless school rules. But to their surprise, Dumbledore smiled warmly, announcing that they would receive special awards for services to the school and 200 points each for Gryffindor. Ron's face turned pink with pride as the weight of their actions began to sink in. Dumbledore then acknowledged Lockhart's unusual state. Ron quickly explained that the defense against the dark arts professor had attempted a memory charm that backfired. Now Lockhart didn't even remember he was a professor. Dumbledore, amused by the situation, instructed Ron to escort Lockhart to the hospital wing. With a bewildered look, Lockhart wandered out of the office, humming to himself, oblivious to his past. Once alone with Harry, Dumbledore's demeanour shifted. He invited Harry to sit and began discussing Tom Riddle's interest in him. Harry, unable to contain his confusion any longer, blurted out the question that had been haunting him. Why had Riddle said they were alike? He also confessed his lingering doubts about the Sorting Hat's initial suggestion that he might belong in Slytherin. Dumbledore, with his characteristic wisdom, explained that Voldemort had unknowingly transferred some of his own powers to Harry the night he gave him his scar. That was why Harry could speak Parseltongue. But, Dumbledore emphasized, what set Harry apart from Voldemort were his choices, not his abilities. Harry had chosen not to be in Slytherin, and that decision revealed the true nature of his character. Dumbledore further solidified this point by showing Harry the sword he had pulled from the Sorting Hat, Godric Gryffindor's sword, a symbol of his true house allegiance. Harry's heart swelled with relief and pride as he realized that the Sorting Hat had been right all along. Before Harry could leave, however, Lucius Malfoy burst into the office, fury radiating from his cold eyes. Dobby the house elf scurried in after him, looking terrified. Lucius sneered at Dumbledore, accusing him of returning to Hogwarts despite being suspended. But Dumbledore remained calm, explaining that the school governors had begged for his return after hearing of Ginny Weasley's fate. They had also mentioned Lucius's threats to curse their families if they didn't agree to the suspension. Lucius, visibly enraged, demanded to know who was behind the attacks, to which Dumbledore replied that it was Voldemort, acting through the enchanted diary. As Dumbledore handed the destroyed diary to Lucius, Harry noticed Dobby behaving oddly, pointing from the diary to Lucius and hitting himself. The truth dawned on Harry. Lucius had given the diary to Ginny. He confronted Lucius, accusing him of planting the diary in Ginny's possession at Flourish and Blots. Lucius, seething, threatened Harry before storming out of the office, kicking Dobby in the process. Harry, determined to free Dobby from Lucius's cruel control, quickly hatched a plan. He stuffed the destroyed diary into one of his dirty socks and chased after Malfoy, offering him the diary back. When Lucius ripped the sock off the book and threw it aside, he inadvertently freed Dobby, because a house elf is freed when their master presents them with clothes. Dobby, overjoyed, announced his newfound freedom. Lucius, furious, lunged at Harry, but Dobby intervened, using his magic to throw Lucius backward. With Lucius gone, Dobby, now free, thanked Harry with all the emotion and devotion in his tiny body. Harry, still smiling, told Dobby to avoid saving his life in the future. After a heartfelt farewell, Dobby vanished, leaving Harry to return to Hogwarts, where the entire school was waiting to celebrate. That night, Hogwarts erupted in joyous celebration. Students and teachers alike gathered in their pajamas for a feast that lasted all night. The hall buzzed with laughter, cheers, and relief. Hermione, now awake and full of excitement, hugged Harry, praising him for solving the mystery. Even Hagrid joined the celebration, knocking Harry and Ron into their plates with his enthusiastic pats on the back. Gryffindor's victory in the House Cup for the second year running was met with cheers, and to everyone's delight, Dumbledore announced that Professor Lockhart wouldn't be returning the following year. The summer term passed quickly, with sunshine and a sense of normalcy returning to Hogwarts. As the Hogwarts Express carried them back home, Harry, Ron, Hermione and the Weasleys shared a compartment, relishing their final moments of magic before the summer break. Ginny giggled as she revealed Percy's secret girlfriend, Penelope Clearwater, much to Fred and George's delight. Before they parted ways, Harry gave Ron and Hermione his phone number, reminding them to call him during the holidays. Though his return to the Dursleys wasn't something to look forward to, Harry felt a deep sense of triumph and belonging as they stepped back into the Muggle world, knowing he had once again survived a year at Hogwarts.